My name is Daniel Cross. I was 26 years old at the time. Back then, my life ran on a schedule that didn't match the rest of the world. I worked freelance in tech, mostly coding, mostly alone. My best hours were late at night when everyone else was asleep and the noise of the world finally died down. I slept during the day. I ate when I remembered to. And I drove empty roads so often that silence felt normal to me. I lived on the edge of a small, rural town. The kind of place people only ever passed through. No mall, no movie theater, just fields, trees, and one single convenience store off an old stretch of highway. That store was open 24/7, and at night it was the only place that felt even remotely alive. That's where this started. It was just past 2:00 a.m. I had been deep in a coding session, locked into that rare state where time disappears. Then, without warning, hunger hit me like a switch had been flipped. The kind of hunger that makes your hands shake and your thoughts scatter. So I shut my laptop, grabbed my keys, and drove. The road to the store was almost completely empty. No streetlights, no oncoming traffic. Just my headlights carving a narrow tunnel through the dark. I remember thinking how peaceful it felt, how quiet. The store appeared ahead like an island of white fluorescent light, surrounded by nothing. I parked, went inside, ordered a sandwich from the hot counter, then wandered the aisles while I waited pretending to browse because I've never been good at standing still. That's when I noticed him. At first, I thought I was mistaken. At the end of one aisle, near the row of refrigerated drink cases, someone was sitting on the floor. Not leaning, not crouching, sitting, cross-legged, facing the refrigerator doors like he was studying them. The image didn't make sense. My brain tried to dismiss it. Maybe he dropped something. Maybe he wasn't feeling well. But the longer I looked, the more wrong it felt. He wore a dark brown jacket and faded jeans. I couldn't see his face from where I stood. Just the tense angle of his shoulders. His back was hunched, not relaxed like his body was under strain. I don't know why, but I felt an overwhelming urge to see his face, not curiosity. Instinct. I moved down a different aisle, pretending to look at snacks. Then I turned the corner quickly, planning to glance at him and move on before he noticed. I didn't get the chance. The moment I appeared, his head snapped around. The movement was so fast it made me freeze. Our eyes locked. His were wide. Too wide. Shiny, under the fluorescent lights, pupils blown out so far, it was hard to tell where the color ended. His lower lip was trembling, vibrating slightly like someone shivering, but the store was warm, and he was wearing a jacket. His posture was twisted. Every muscle looked tight coiled, like he wasn't resting at all, just forcing himself into the shape of sitting. But the worst part was his expression. He wasn't angry. He wasn't confused. He wasn't smiling. He stared at me with a flat, empty gaze that made my stomach drop. Like he wasn't really looking at me, but through me. Like I wasn't fully there. We stood like that for several seconds. Too long. I was the first to look away. I ducked into the next aisle, heart pounding, suddenly desperate to leave. But my food wasn't ready yet. I stood at the counter, pretending to be calm while my body buzzed with adrenaline. I angled myself so I could see the corner of the store where he had been. He never walked past, never stood up, never left the aisle. He was just gone. When my sandwich was called, I grabbed it and walked straight out without looking back. I thought that was the end of it. I pulled out of the parking lot, turning toward the highway when something moved in my peripheral vision. I glanced over. Someone was running, full speed, from the store entrance across the lot toward a truck parked at the far edge. Brown jacket. He jumped into an old pickup The engine roared to life. Headlights flared on. A cold wave rolled through me. I hit the gas. The store lights faded behind me as the road swallowed everything again. I told myself it was nothing. Just a coincidence. Just a weird guy doing weird things at 2 a.m. Then I saw headlights in my rearview mirror. At first, I assumed it was another late-night driver. But the lights were closing the distance fast. Faster than they should have been. I was already speeding. I slowed slightly, half expecting police lights. They never came. The truck pulled closer and closer. It was the same pickup. I knew it with absolute certainty. My chest tightened. I accelerated. The truck stayed with me. Then the driver started flashing his headlights. Laying on the horn, I didn't know what to do. If I pulled over, I'd be alone on an empty highway with him. If I ran, I risked crashing. I chose to run. The speedometer climbed. 80, 90, the road blurred, my hands were slick on the wheel. My breathing turned shallow and panicked. I switched lanes hoping he'd pass. He swerved to stay behind me. I eased off the gas, preparing to pull onto the shoulder. That's when he hit me. The impact jolted my car forward. Metal screamed. My heart slammed against my ribs. In that instant, everything became crystal clear. This wasn't intimidation. He was trying to make me lose control. I knew he was going to ram me again. At this speed, it would be over. I would spin out. I would die out there in the dark where no one would see it happen. When his headlights surged closer, something inside me snapped into focus. I yanked the wheel left and slammed the brakes. The truck shot past me, fishtailing wildly. I watched as it swerved back and forth, then spun off the road and disappeared into the black field beside the highway. I didn't stop. I didn't slow down. I drove all the way home like I was being chased by something I couldn't see. Once inside, I called the police. I told them everything. My voice shook the entire time. They took my statement, said they'd look into it. No one ever called me back. Weeks passed. My car had minor damage. I fixed it. But something in me stayed broken. Every night drive felt different. Every set of headlights made my pulse spike. I thought the nightmare had reached its peak, until I realized that leaving that road behind hadn't meant leaving the terror with it, because some encounters don't end when the engine shuts off. They just wait. I believed leaving that road behind would be enough. I sold the car a few months later, not because of the damage. That was minor, cosmetic. I sold it because every time I got behind the wheel at night, my chest tightened. Every set of headlights felt personal. Every engine behind me sounded too close. I told myself I needed a change. New routine, new scenery, new job. That's how I ended up working overnight logistics. On paper, it was simple. Long-haul driving, electronics, parts, packages that needed to move between places most people didn't want to go. Rural routes, empty highways, late hours. The pay was decent, and I told myself I was used to the dark. I was wrong. This happened the summer after the incident at the convenience store. I was 7 by then, older, supposedly smarter. But fear has a way of hiding until it smells familiarity. That night, I was finishing the last leg of a run through the Southwest. The route cut through a stretch of highway locals avoided after sunset. Narrow lanes, no cell service for miles. The kind of place where headlights feel intrusive like they don't belong. It was a little after 1 a.m. The road curved gently through open land. No trees, no buildings, just darkness pressed flat against the horizon. I had a podcast playing quietly, more for company than entertainment. Then I saw hazard lights ahead. A small car sat on the shoulder, angled wrong. too close to the road. Red blinkers pulsing in the dark. I slowed instinctively. Standing beside the car was a woman. Early 20s, maybe. Phone raised above her head, arms stretched upward like she was trying to reach the sky itself for a signal. Every warning bell in my body went off. I should have driven past, I knew that. I thought about it. My foot hovered over the accelerator, but then I thought about my sister, about what I would hope someone would do for her if she was stranded in the middle of nowhere at night. So I slowed, rolled the passenger window down a few inches. She moved fast, too fast. She crossed the distance between us almost instantly and grabbed the door handle before I even spoke. It was locked. She tugged once hard. "I need a ride," she said. "My car just died. I can't get service. Just to the nearest station." Her voice shook, or maybe it vibrated. I couldn't tell. Her words ran together slightly like she was stressed or rehearsed. I hesitated. She didn't wait. "Please," she said. "I just need to get off this road." I glanced at her car again. That's when I saw him. A man stepped out from behind it, slowly, like he'd been waiting. Tall, broad. He stayed close to the rear bumper, partially hidden by shadow. My heart started to race. Then another shape moved. This one was in the road ahead of me, standing directly in my lane, maybe 50 feet out, holding something long in his hands. A pipe, a bat, I couldn't tell. That was the moment everything snapped into place. This wasn't bad luck. It was a setup. I slammed my foot down. The engine roared. The woman screamed. She whipped around in her seat, shouting something I couldn't understand, then reached down into her purse, digging frantically. I didn't wait to find out what she was reaching for. "Don't move," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. I drew my gun, not pointing it at her, just letting it rest where she could see it. On the steering wheel. Clear. Unmistakable. She froze. Instantly. Her hands stopped moving. Her mouth closed. She stared straight ahead, eyes wide, face blank. The change was so abrupt it felt unreal. The men behind us disappeared into the dark as the road swallowed them. For 30 minutes, we drove in silence. She didn't speak. I didn't blink. Every mile felt stretched thin, like something was about to tear. When we finally reached a lit gas station on the outskirts of a small town, I pulled in hard and told her to get out. She refused, mumbled excuses, slurred protests. I leaned across her, opened the door, and forced her out onto the pavement. She stumbled and fell, shouting incoherently. A trucker nearby started jogging over concern written all over his face. I didn't stay. I peeled out of that lot and didn't look back. At the next stop, I checked the passenger seat. Between the cushions, I found a burner phone battery and a sealed pack of zip ties. I threw them away, washed my hands until they shook. I told no one. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong again, because fear has a pattern, and once you recognize it, you start seeing it everywhere. A year later, different state, different route, same night shift. I stopped at a rest area just past midnight. Blue sign, dim lights, almost empty. One other vehicle in the lot, a white cargo van parked far from the building. I went inside, washed my face, tried to wake myself up. When I stepped back outside, the van's headlights were on. The engine wasn't. I didn't remember hearing it start. I got in my truck and pulled out immediately. 5 minutes later, the van was behind me. Too close. It rode my bumper, switched lanes, pulled alongside me. The driver motioned for me to roll my window down, pointing toward the back of my truck, like something was wrong. There was nothing back there. I kept driving. He cut in front of me, slammed the brakes, then veered off onto the shoulder and stopped. I sped past, heart hammering. Minutes later, he was behind me again, following, watching. I didn't stop until I reached a crowded truck stop. flooded with light and noise, and people who looked like they wouldn't disappear quietly. The van followed me in. A trucker noticed my face, walked outside with me, confronted them. 2 men inside the van, hoodies up, silent, staring straight ahead. They left without a word. I stayed there for nearly an hour. When I finally checked my truck, there were dirty handprints on the tailgate, like someone had tried to open it. I quit that job not long after. People ask why I don't drive at night anymore, why I fill up before dark, why I avoid empty roads, roadside stops, places with only one way in and out. I tell them I just prefer daylight. The truth is harder to explain. Some people think monsters look a certain way, that danger announces itself, but it doesn't. Sometimes it sits cross-legged on a convenience store floor. Sometimes it waves you down with hazard lights. Sometimes it follows quietly, patiently, until you make the wrong choice. And sometimes it lets you go. That's the part that keeps me awake. Because I don't know why I was spared. And I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't trusted that first feeling in my gut. I thought surviving meant I was safe. Now I understand something much worse. Surviving just means you get to remember. I didn't quit driving at night all at once. It happened slowly, quietly, like something easing its grip rather than letting go. I changed jobs, moved again. Told myself I was done with highways, rest stops, and fluorescent-lit places that never slept. I tried to live a normal schedule, daylight hours, crowded streets. For a while it worked, or at least I thought it did, because fear doesn't disappear. It just waits for the right moment to remind you it's still there. This was 2 years after everything else. Different state, different town, a place bigger than anywhere I'd lived before. Apartment complex, neighbors, traffic, noise. I convinced myself that whatever had followed me belonged to empty places. I was wrong. One night, close to midnight, I stopped at a small convenience store near my apartment. Not the old kind on the highway. This one was wedged between a closed laundromat and a liquor store right off a busy road. Bright lights, security cameras, people coming and going. Safe. I went in for a drink and a pack of gum. Nothing more. The store was mostly empty. Just me, the cashier, and one other customer near the back. A man in a brown jacket. I froze. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. That same tightness in my chest. That same cold, sinking feeling in my stomach. I told myself I was projecting. Trauma. Pattern recognition gone wrong. Lots of people wear brown jackets. But then he sat down, right there on the floor, cross-legged, facing the refrigerator. Exactly the same way. My ears started ringing. I couldn't hear the music playing overhead anymore. I couldn't hear the hum of the coolers. My pulse filled the space instead. I stood completely still. The cashier called out, asking if I needed help. I didn't answer. The man's head turned, slowly this time. Too slowly. When his eyes met mine, I knew. They were the same, wide, empty. Too present, and not present at all. His mouth twitched once, just barely, like a muscle remembering how to smile, but failing. He stood up. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I felt pinned in place by that stare, by the certainty that whatever this was, it recognized me. He took a step closer, then another. The cashier noticed something was wrong. I heard the tone of his voice change, sharper, louder. "Hey," he said, "you can't sit on the floor like that." The man didn't react, didn't blink, didn't breathe. He just kept looking at me. I backed away slowly, never breaking eye contact. My hand found the door behind me, pushing it open without looking. I stumbled outside. The cold air hit my face like a slap. I sucked in a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding and turned toward my car. That's when I saw the truck, an old pickup, parked across the street, engine off, lights dark. But I knew it was his. I got into my car and locked the doors. My hands shook so badly I dropped my keys twice before managing to start the engine. In my rearview mirror, I saw him exit the store. He didn't hurry. He walked toward the truck at a calm, measured pace, like he knew I wasn't going anywhere yet. I pulled out. So did he. He didn't chase me this time. He followed, at a distance, far enough to be reasonable. Far enough that if anyone asked, it could be a coincidence. A normal car on a normal road. But every turn I made, he made too. Left, right, 3 blocks straight. I didn't go home. I drove to the nearest police station. The moment the building came into view, red and blue lights reflecting off the windows, I felt something shift behind me. The truck slowed, then turned away. I parked in front of the station and sat there for a long time, staring at my hands on the steering wheel. The next day, I went back to the store. I told myself I needed proof that I hadn't imagined it. The cashier remembered me. He said the man in the brown jacket never bought anything, never spoke, just left. When I asked about the truck, his face changed. What truck, he asked. I showed him the security footage timestamp from my receipt. They checked the cameras. There was no truck, no brown jacket, no man sitting on the floor. Just me, standing there, staring at an empty aisle. I don't tell this story because I want sympathy. I tell it because I need you to understand something. Some predators don't want money. Some don't want your car. Some don't even want your life. Some just want to know they could take it. And once they find you, they don't forget. I don't drive at night anymore. I don't stop at convenience stores when the aisles are empty. I don't trust silence the way I used to. And every once in a while, when I pass a brightly lit store surrounded by darkness, I swear I see someone sitting on the floor inside, waiting